Hello, everyone. Welcome back to many of you. My name is Chef Emily, coming to you from the Teaching Kitchen here at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. Delighted that you're joining me on this beautiful day for our cooking class around what to do with stone fruits. So I don't know if you've been to a farmer's market lately or even the grocery store. There's lots of peaches and plums and wonderful stone fruits that are starting to fill our market tables and our local trees here in New York. You can definitely find local peaches within a 100-mile radius this time of year. So that's very exciting. Apricots, plums. So this is a very fun class because we're going to be figuring out what on earth to do with all of this abundance. And I'm here to sort of think creatively with all of you, beyond just like jams and jellies and lots of sugary things that are great, but, maybe not that health supportive for us. What else can you do with all of these wonderful fruits that are in season right now? So that's going to be the focus of our class. For those of you who are new and not familiar with our question and chat function, I know Alita is our moderator today. Thank you, Alita. And if you have any questions, put them into the chat box, type them in, and Alita will gracefully interrupt me throughout the program and ask me your questions. This is a community class. You are one of many people on this program, so thank you for joining in and doing this together with your community. And on that note, I also want to, suggest that I love these classes because I feel like it's a great opportunity to get to learn from some of you as well. And if you have any, any thoughts on what you like to do with stone fruits that you want to share, cooking is a co-creative experience. You never cook alone, right? Because there's always, a million chefs that came before you, perhaps in your own family, or chefs that just inspired what you're making that night. So I really love the community aspect of cooking. So if you have thoughts about what you like to do with stone fruits, feel free to put them in the chat box and share them with everybody else so we can continue to be inspired by one another. So what on earth is a stone fruit, you might ask? That's going to be your peaches, your nectarines, your plums, your apricots. Those are kind of the classic ones. And then cherries, apriums, which are a plum and apricot kind of hybrid. Pluots, which are also a plum and apricot hybrid, but slightly different. And then you've got things like mangoes. What else are stone fruits? Coconuts, dates, green almonds, the fresh green almonds. And then there are some berries that actually botanically are classified as stone fruits, which is kind of perplexing to me, but things like blackberries and raspberries, as well as mulberries. We're gonna put those to the side for now, and we're just gonna focus on some of the ones that I mentioned, primarily the ones that you can really start to see locally around here: your apricots, your peaches, your nectarines, and your plums. That's gonna be our focus for today. So we're gonna be making 3 recipes. We're making a peach panzanella. So if you're not familiar with panzanella, not only is it really fun to say, but it's really, really delicious. Basically, it is a salad where you get to tear up some bread, toast that bread in the oven, and get these nice kind of chunky croutons, so much better than your packaged store-bought seasoned croutons. And this bread kind of soaks up the dressing and the juices of all the veggies and things that we're putting in here. So it's really yummy. So we're going to make peach panzanella. And then we're making a savory stone fruit soup. So I wanted to think of a way to kind of make a gazpacho style chilled soup that has peaches and plums and watermelon, and all that's blended together with some thyme, some garlic. What else am I putting in there today? Olive oil, lemon juice, a little bit of sherry vinegar, and then it's topped with a bit of yogurt and some slivered almonds for crunch. So we're going to be making that, and then we're also making a grilled tofu and apricot skewers. So I wanted to think about a little bit of a different way to enjoy apricots than just fresh is to grill them, or you can even roast and bake them. A recipe that I also thought about for this class but didn't include is, and perhaps I will in a future class, is to roast apricots with a little bit of honey and thyme and olive oil, and then to put that over some Greek yogurt as a dessert, or some goat cheese if you want, sort of a savory sandwich. That could be really good too. Okay, so many possibilities. So let's begin with the panzanella. And as we get started here, I just want to show you how to cut the corn off the cob. We're also adding some summer corn to this. So you take off the top, you take off, this is called the shank. I couldn't remember it the other day. So this part here is called the shank. Cut all the way up the shank to get rid of that. I'm going to draw my trash can a little bit closer to me so I can work, have a good workflow is important. And then we're going to start by taking off the husk. So peeling this corn off. Corn you can start to find right now as well. Peel this off just like a jacket. Right? You don't need jackets in the summer, so peel them off. And then I like to twist to get the silks off. So now you've got cleaned corn in no time. So very efficient way to clean corn, getting rid of your little silks if you can. It's okay to have a few on there, but I like to try to get it as clean as possible. And then to get your corn off the cob, I like to wet a little paper towel, something to give this some grip. I put it inside of a bowl. I usually do this in a bigger bowl, so we'll see how I do with the smaller bowl. And then I take another bowl and I invert this on top. And then I've created like a little pedestal for my corn, right? It's like the Olympic trophy. Here it is. So you're going to start by cutting down the side of the corn. I do think this bowl is a little bit too small, but let's see. Oh, it's falling in there. Yeah. So the goal of doing it this way is for the kernels to fall into the bowl instead of, all over your kitchen floor. And you can see this is working pretty well. The logic behind the paper towel on the bottom there is so that the bowl doesn't slip. I'm kind of angling this so that the kernels go in there. And there you are. So your corn's ready. You've got some bread here. You can either tear it by hand. This is kind of the classic Panzanella style, is just to get some bread and kind of tear it into these rustic croutons. And you can do this with frozen bread, just thaw out your bread. I really like this with sourdough bread. It's one of my favorite, kinds of bread because it has just more of a complex texture. I'm really actually excited because some of my neighbors in the Cold Spring area are opening a bakery in Peekskill. It's called Signal Fire Bread. So I just want to give them a shout out because they are going to be starting to sell their bread in Peekskill through, I think you have to order online through their website for a Thursday pickup or something like that between 11 and 2. And their bread is just out of this world. So shout out for them. And we're going to add our ShopRite bread for now because that's what we have. But hopefully we'll be using some Signal Fire soon. Let's add that corn, and we're just going to roast this all together. So you notice I added a little bit of olive oil to this, right? Spread it out on your sheet pan. Make sure everything gets some oil. And then we're going to add a pinch of salt. Get these nice and salted. These are going to be crunchy, salty, toasty, delicious. You can crack some black pepper right on that if you want. Okay, and into the oven it goes. So this is step one. You can do this with or without the corn. Let me look at that a little bit closer. So I like it with the corn, but certainly you do not have to have corn. I have my oven preheated here, so that's going to help move things along. Next step is to prepare our salad. So we have a bunch of vegetables going into this, as well as herbs. So you can notice here I have some beautiful chives. That's going to be part of this. I have some peaches and apricots. Okay, so this recipe, historically, I've always made it with peaches, but the apricots are so good right now. I thought, why not add some of those in there too? So, it's called a peach panzanella, mostly because I love alliteration. And you can also add other stone fruits to this too. You could add your plums, you could add your apricots, nectarines, any of them, even like some sliced cherries if you wanted to, get really creative and you have a little time on your hands to take the stones out, you can do that as well. So let's get everything into this bowl. We're going to start by making our dressing. So for this, I'm using pomegranate pomegranate molasses. This is something you'd have to buy, either online or in a specialty kind of grocery store. And if you can't find it, I did include a substitution for the pomegranate molasses. I can't remember, but it's in the packet. I think it's 1 part molasses and 1 part honey. And what else did I put in there? And a little bit of lemon juice. So regular molasses, a little honey, and some lemon juice kind of gives you the same flavor profile as the pomegranate molasses. So I love this pomegranate molasses because it is tart and it's deep. It has like these kind of nice undertones of like almost the way molasses can be really almost have that like slightly burnt flavor, but in a good way, if that makes any sense. So this is really a nice thing to keep in your pantry whenever you want to add something that's a little sweet, a little tart, and has that depth to it. So we're going to start, let's start with our dressing. So I have some extra virgin olive oil. We have our pomegranate molasses here. I'm going to add some of that in. This is very, very basic. A little bit more. There it is. And some lemon juice. You can use your hand to catch the seeds. I always like to do it this way because it's just very easy for me. You don't have to go searching through all your kitchen drawers for that citrus reamer that's usually hiding all the way in the back, right? So it's very good. You can, your hands, hopefully your hands never go too far. You can always find them. All right. Any questions or comments, Alita? How's everyone doing today on our Stones Root summer class?
So no questions yet, but I did put the information on the Signal Fire Bread. I've been looking at their website because they have some wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So no questions yet.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Alita. Yeah. It's always nice to support our community and I always especially like to support, local artisans when it comes to food. Pinch of salt going in here and just whisk this all together. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to heat up my grill pan so it gets hot for me. When that way I can start my apricots with a hot grill. That's going to make a big difference. Hot grill. So I'm using a grill pan. You can use, move this back a little bit. You can use your grill outside. That's what you want to do. This is going to be nice and tart from the lemon juice and the olive oil. You can sweeten it up with honey if you are particularly craving that. And you can see I'm using a whisk here to incorporate a lot of air. This is emulsifying the vinaigrette. And as I'm doing this, you'll notice it starts to get thicker and thicker, and it lightens in color. So this is really, you want to keep working it until it kind of achieves the right viscosity and the right color. See how it's kind of adhering to the bowl? Almost looks like caramel. Don't be fooled, it's not. Let's add some chives. So I'm just going to roll right through the chives here. And panzanella for me is a very, beautiful summer kind of rustic salad. So I like that because rustic is kind of like, I think the nice way of saying lazy. You just can put things together in a very relaxed way and not have to worry too much about, oh my gosh, this chive is slightly bigger than this chive, and all the rest. So I kind of like that, the rustic approach where it's more worry-free. Okay, it's good to have a little bench scraper here to tidy up our herbs. These are chives from our very own organic garden. Very excited to be pulling things from there. Let's get our tomatoes ready. So I have some tomatoes. I'm just going to cut them right in half. I like the little ones because they don't, they're juicy, but they kind of hang on to their juices. So here, I chopped up the rest of them ahead of time so you wouldn't be watching me chop tomatoes all day. I think that's a good enough amount. I want to keep the right ratios. So I like the cherry tomatoes because you get some of the juices in there, but it's not everywhere kind of losing the flavor, and the juices aren't kind of running out everywhere. So that's why I'm choosing the cherry ones. With your cucumber, you can peel or not to peel, right? This is the eternal question. I'm kind of an in-between person when it comes to peeling. So I'll do like a stripe, right? So I'll leave maybe a little bit of peel on there, just for some color. And then I like to cut this in half, then cut it down the middle. So you end up with 4 pieces, because these cucumbers are really long, so it's hard sometimes to cut down the middle of the whole thing. Grab your little spoon and scrape, kind of tease out those seeds. Now, I do this for a few reasons. One is I find that these cucumber seeds kind of repeat on folks, myself included, and I prefer not to have that experience when I'm enjoying my salad. So I scrape them out for that reason. They're just a little bit more challenging for folks to digest. And I don't know if you can tell here, but you probably can't see it, but I'm getting a complete cucumber seed shower, because the seeds are very, very watery. So I like to discard them. You could probably throw them in that soup you're making later. That would probably be yummy. But I like to get rid of them because they're just too watery and the flavor dilutes, and it doesn't really add much. But I like the crunch of the cucumber, so that's why we're adding it. You can go for half moons, tucking your fingers, rolling your knife. A good sharp knife will help you do this quickly. And always make sure to tuck the thumbs. They like to hitchhike their way under the knife, so be careful. In go the cucumbers. Okay. Again, you can add different stuff to your salad. If you've got some nice peppers lying around, feel free to add that. Let's check on our bread. It smells good, and I don't want to burn everything. I'm pretty good at that sometimes. So the bread is toasted. I want this to go a little bit longer because my corn's not quite roasted yet. So let's let that keep going. Our grill here is getting nice and hot. So I'm going to turn that down so it's ready to go. And then let's work with our fruits here. So I've got a peach. So peaches are kind of cool, and you know, they kind of tell you where to cut. You want to cut around, right? It hangs off the tree like this, and you want to cut around the long way, right? So follow the line, follow the line. So I'm going to put this on its side. This is an apricot. Put it on its side, cut through where the stem was. You don't even have to move the knife. Turn the fruit and then twist it in half. Now, sometimes the stone in the middle can really, because there's 2 types of peaches and plums and nectarines. There's what's called freestone. I can't remember what the other one is called, but the other one is like sticky stone, basically, because it like sticks to the flesh of the fruit. So there's different kinds, and these look like, these look like they could be freestone. It's kind of hard to know, but sometimes it's hard. You can see here I'm kind of having a hard time pulling this out. And sometimes if you have really beautiful, ripe fruit, it's really hard to get that pit off of there. So I'm going to show you another technique. I feel like it's hard to get the pit off if it's too ripe or if it's not ripe enough, right? It kind of has to be like right in the middle. So I'm adding my chopped apricots. So here's our peach. This one is a little bit hard. And let's talk about how you can tell when stone fruit is ripe. Usually it should have a wonderful smell, a smell that just makes you want to sink your teeth into it right away. So this one it's not quite there yet. Peaches over there, the white peaches, they smell amazing. And then in terms of pressure, if you press into it just ever so lightly, you should know it should kind of like, it's called, all chefs say it yields to the touch. What does that actually mean? Same thing with avocados, right? It means that it's like it slightly gives when you press into it. So same thing here, we're going to cut through the peach, and this one might be hard to open because it's a little unripe. So I'm going to show you another trick here. So we did one way, right? We cut around one way. Now go through the top and cut around the other way. So you're basically cutting this into quarters. Now it's going to be easier to kind of break this off the pit. See that? So much easier. Questions or comments? Does anyone want to share their favorite peach, plum, apricot recipes, things that they love to make with these beautiful stone fruits? I mean, it's like eating a sunset. It's like the most beautiful fruit, I think, especially with the skin. Yes.
2 of the attendees put the word cling. I don't know if they were referring,
Yes.
okay, to the
Probably to the fruit. Yes.
the kind of, okay.
You guys didn't like sticky pit? Okay.
And
Thank
then
you.
the question for me is, should apricots be eaten soft like peaches?
Yeah, so apricots, exactly. They should be slightly soft as well. As you don't want them to get too soft because then they get mealy, right? So it's kind of like there's a sweet spot with that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Not at this point.
Okay, so we've got our, you can see this beautiful roasted, toasted goodness. We're gonna add this to the bowl. And then we're gonna toss that all around. I'm just gonna put this down here so that I don't completely melt my cutting board. Lord knows I've done that a few times. All right, so you want to, this is where the parchment is always helpful. You kind of lift everything up, jigger it into that bowl. All right, if you notice, we haven't added any salad greens to this salad yet. So that's what's coming next. Let's put this to the back so I don't accidentally burn myself. Okay, and we're ready for more herbs. So we're gonna be using some romaine for this. I have some red leaf lettuce. And whenever you're washing your lettuces, be gentle, especially with the Boston lettuce, the romaine, all of these red leaves, these beautiful leaves, you know, I actually prefer to hand tear my lettuce. Of course, we're not going to stand in our kitchen all day tearing lettuce. So if you just want to chop at it with a knife, that's fine too. But if you're working with these kind of more delicate leaves, you know, it's nice to treat them gently because they are delicate. So you could take some of your romaine or your red leaf or your Boston lettuce. And then once you tear it, or you kind of get it, I already did this a little bit, but once you kind of get it into the bowl, you can run your water over it. Be careful with salad spinners and delicate lettuce leaves. You don't want to bruise your lettuce, right? Like I mentioned, it's a delicate, it's very sensitive. We don't want to bruise it with our salad spinner ways. So how do you wash your lettuce? Well, you can dunk it in a big bowl of cold water. And these little leaves love cold water. And you can see there's a little bit of moisture on these leaves still. I'm just kind of shaking them as I go. But I don't really worry about having a little bit of water on the lettuce, especially if I'm going to eat it right away. So you get your leaves ready. Make sure there's, kind of get them as dry as they can be. Let's set this to the back. Right, and then you're ready to add more herbs. So we have a couple of things here. Does anybody know what this is? Any guesses? Alita, what do you see coming in the chat? I saw another question that came up.
So yeah, it's a question about the parchment paper. How high can the oven temperature be in terms of you using parchment paper?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I actually think it has more to do with what's on the parchment paper than anything else. I've noticed that if I put parchment paper and it doesn't actually have, like, if I put it under something that's dripping in a pan to try to put, like, then it can burn. So you want to have stuff on your parchment paper, otherwise it could burn. But I typically don't use parchment when I'm broiling. Because that's a direct flame. And then otherwise, I use it for almost everything else. Can't think of anything else.
Yeah. So E says.
Do you have thoughts on that, Alita?
No.
On parchment, yeah. That's kind of my.
I mean, I use it. I use it the same way you just described.
Right.
But E says, is that Purslane?
Yes, E, you get the award today. You get a prize. I don't know what it is yet, but you get a prize. So Purslane, wonderful, wonderful, health supportive, little succulent actually. And it's one of the only plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids. It has a little bit of omega-3s in there. I'm just picking the leaves off the stems because I'm, a little picky, but you can eat the stems too. And there's interesting studies that suggest that they might be good for heart health and potentially lowering cholesterol. I mean, here we are, right, all over New York. We're just pulling out purslane and throwing it out of our gardens because purslane is a weed. It will take over. So don't plant purslane because you will never see the end of it. But you know, in our garden here, it just pops up, and it's completely edible. The whole, you know, the whole stem and leaves and everything. So feel free to, you know, play around with your purslane and see how you like it and add it to your salad. I also have some parsley going in here. So here's some nice fresh garden parsley. We're going to chop that up and add that in as well. I don't have very thick stems on this one, so I'm just going to cut the stems that are in here really, really small. Maybe I'll get rid of these little ones at the bottom. Here, see, I'm just going to get rid of those. But everything else, chop it up, toss it in, you're good to go. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question about what does a purslane taste like? What's the taste?
Ooh, what's the taste? Okay. I don't usually eat on camera, but so it first hits you with a little bit of almost like a lemony taste, like a little bit of a sour taste. Then it gets grassier. Then it gets a little, I don't want to use the word slimy, but mucilaginous. And yeah, it's kind of grassy and lemony, I think, are the predominant flavors, I would say.
There was also a follow-up question to the parchment paper. Could you bake meats on it?
Yeah, I mean, I bake chicken on it all the time. Yeah, I bake meats on it. So I'm chopping up some fresh mint. This is going in, so lots and lots of herbs into this bountiful summer salad. Okay, and you notice I'm doing the kind of fragile, delicate herbs and the lettuce in one bowl and the everything else in the other, because when you serve this, or at least the way I like to do it, is I like to kind of mound this on top of the lettuce leaves, because otherwise the croutons and everything just kind of like weighs it all down pretty heavily. So let's stick this to the side. I'll plate that up in a moment, and we're gonna get started with our grilled fruit and our tofu. So our grill pan is hot, I can feel that. And the tofu that we're using today is organic tofu. It's firm. I actually prefer extra firm, but they didn't have it, so got to make do with what's around, right? So while I get this on, first of all, you want to make sure you've got a little coating of oil on there. So I did put some oil on here earlier, just kind of heating it up with the oil, prepping my grill pan. And then I have the tofu here ready to go. I also, okay, so my ideal is to have it like this, because this looks really pretty, but the apricots that came from, these ones actually came from the grocery store. I have some smaller ones from the farmer's market, but these big ones that I wanted to use for the grilling, well, they're just a little bit bigger than the tofu. So ideally you would find, you know, the sweet little apricots, you know, from the farmer's market. That I only have a few. I think I have a few somewhere, but I can't remember where I put them. But that way they're sort of the same size as the tofu, because that way they rest on the grill pan, you know, and everything kind of touches the same way. So you've got your marinade here. Now this is the marinade that I made. I, you know, did the tofu and the marinade ahead of time. It's got some leaves in there, so it might be hard to kind of zhuzh it with the what's that thing called? A squeeze bottle. Very important technical culinary terms. Squeeze bottle. Okay. So I'm kind of basting some of these in a little bit of that marinade. And the marinade, if you don't have the packet, I will read it to you. So I did this ahead of time. It's a blend of coconut milk, plain yogurt, some peanut butter, some lime juice, a little bit of honey, and garlic cloves. So you blend all of that together. Oh, and I put some cilantro and jalapeno in there too, just to give it more flavor. So I blended all of that. I cut up the tofu into cubes and I let it sit. I actually let it sit overnight, but you can, you know, just marinate it for 3 hours. Tofu is like a sponge, so it's going to take on the flavor of whatever you're cooking. You know, whatever you marinated in, it's like a sponge. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm brushing this with the marinade and we're ready to grill. So any questions?
Yes, so somebody wants to know where did you buy the purslane, but I think you said you got it from the garden, or?
So you can't buy purslane, but you can probably bother your neighbor if they have a garden for it. Because it's something that you might be able to find it at a farmer's market. Actually, it's kind of funny. Sometimes, you know, you go to New York City and you go to the green market there, beautiful green market, right? But, you know, they're selling purslane and it's like kind of hilarious because it's, you know, they sell it for, I don't know, $10 a bunch and it's literally a weed. So purslane is an optional ingredient in this salad. I just like to mention it because I like to mention that you can eat it. So this apricot came off the skewer, but that's okay. So I'm going to put these face down, and as they're cooking, I'm going to do one more to show you how I did it. Yes, go ahead, Alita.
So a question says, does extra firm tofu have more calcium than the less firm?
So good question. I'm not sure, but I think yes. And here's why I think yes. What is the difference between firm and extra firm tofu? Essentially, it's how long it's been pressed and consolidated. So let's talk about tofu for a second, actually. It's a great question, because tofu is really one of those foods that sparks a big debate. And it's made from condensed soy milk that's been pressed into a solid white block. So most of the world's soybeans are grown in the US, and a large proportion of them are genetically modified. And I mention this because GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are also very controversial. So tofu has like a double controversy. But research hasn't conclusively determined whether or not GMOs are harmful to humans. But if you're concerned about that, if you buy organic tofu, which a lot of tofu brands are organic, that's one way to kind of at least, you know, manage that GMO, is it good for me or not question. But tofu contains many nutrients. With half a cup, you get about 8 grams of protein, 20% of your calcium, as well as selenium, magnesium, iron is in there, and a little bit of zinc too. So it's very low calorie, and it contains what are called isoflavones. It's this plant compound that basically functions as a phytoestrogen. So it can attach and activate estrogen receptors in the body. And that's why the relationship between soy and breast cancer is very controversial. So speak to your doctor, because if it, you know, when it comes to breast cancer, that's an especially complex subject. Okay, so what was the question? Calcium. Okay, so coming back to our calcium, if you imagine, you know, your block of tofu is this big, right? And then you press it and you press it and you press it. It's gonna condense, like per square inch, the more firm the tofu is, the more calcium there will be in it, because the less liquid is in there and the more soybeans are in there. Basically, that's the very long answer to your great question. Thank you.
Great question.
All right.
So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, really quickly. So I searched and it says that parchment paper is rated for use between 420 and 450 degrees.
Oh,
I had no idea.
Okay.
But for baking bread and for making pizza, it could be used up to 500 degrees.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Alita, for doing that research, because I feel like I just use it for everything.
And me too.
Think twice about it.
I had no idea, but I put it on the chat so people can see it.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm just showing you how I got these skewers ready, right? So I just kind of threaded them on there. So everything is threaded through. You can put, where's that spoon? It's in there somewhere. You can put some of that marinade on the apricots, give them a little bit of flavor, right? And you don't want things to be dripping wet when you put them on a grill, because you're looking for grill marks. So if something's, you know, super wet, it's going to, it's just going to kind of steam, and it's not going to have the nice browning effect that you want. So just, you know, a little bit on there. And then I like to put it face down so the apricots get some nice contact with that. I have a little extra marinade here in case we should need it. We can always, you know, add some for more flavor as it's cooking. And that's it for this recipe. It's pretty straightforward. I did soak my bamboo skewers in some water before, I guess I can turn this oven off. Before getting started, I took the bamboo skewers and just soaked them in some water. That helps them not burn if you're grilling. Another thing you can do is you can take a little piece of tinfoil and wrap, like if you're doing this on a big flame and a big grill, you can wrap the end of each skewer with a little tinfoil so it doesn't burn. That's another technique as well. Questions or comments? I'm going to tidy this up and we're going to move on to our
So yeah, there's a question.
Yes.
Is it better to use parchment instead of tin foil?
So most of you who have taken my classes before know that I love using parchment instead of tinfoil for environmental reasons. Parchment is paper. It's going to break down very quickly in the environment, whereas tinfoil will take a really long time to break down in the environment, possibly hundreds of years. So I like parchment for the environmental reasons. And then I find it's very easy to use, very easy to clean up and work with. From a health standpoint, there are some interesting suggestions that cooking with tinfoil might not be so good to get the aluminum in our food. So it's kind of still a question mark from a health standpoint, but from a environmental standpoint, yeah, absolutely, I prefer the parchment. And I have this big box of parchment sheets. It's like 1,000 sheets, and they come out, perfectly cut like this. I'm not going to lift it out because it's really quite big and heavy. But you can buy these, and there's 1,000 sheets, and it's probably $50. And you can, store it somewhere flat and then just have your parchment sheets ready to go. You can probably get them at like a restaurant depot kind of store or something like that. Other questions?
It says that so somebody just made a comment that it works just as well in the cooking process.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So I'm just wiggling my little tofus to see if they're ready to come up yet. And they're not, they're sticking. So I'm just gonna let them hang out. They're just gonna chill over there. Or the opposite of chill. They're gonna get roasted over there. All right, let's break down our watermelon. So this is really heavy. I feel like this weighs the same as like my 3-year-old niece. So you want to work with your watermelon in a way that works for you. Meaning, if you need to buy it peeled and already chopped, this recipe actually calls for yellow watermelon because it just gives it a really beautiful, like pale color. But they didn't have yellow watermelon.
45.
So I'm using red. Sorry?
45.
I can't hear you. Say that again.
Never mind. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries. So with your watermelon, I like to start by taking off the bottom and then taking off the other side and just kind of breaking it down into smaller pieces so that you can actually work with it. At this point, I'm going to cut it right down the middle. Crack it open, right? I'm going to set 1/2 to the side because we don't actually need it. Just going to use some of it, okay? And then over here, put it on the biggest flat surface that's there, and then you can use the knife, follow the curve of the melon to get the rind off. This is usually when the juice starts oozing everywhere, right? But yeah, you just want to keep kind of working it around and around. So we're working on our stone fruit soup, but there is a little bit of a watermelon guest in this one. Chickens love melon. If you want to give them rinds to pick at, my gosh, they're going to be so excited. All right, and then over here now, this is a lot easier to work with, right? Now you can cut this in half. Again, find another flat surface to work on. I don't actually need that much watermelon for this recipe, so I'm just going to cut some up. Ideally, you'd be working with a seedless watermelon, so you don't have to pick all the seeds out. But if your watermelon has some seeds in it, that's okay too. I'm going to cut this across just to get these pieces a little bit more narrow. Okay, beautiful. So now we've got our chunked up watermelon ready for use. Let's check on these over here. Are they releasing? Oh, not quite. They're close though. It could be. I'm a little concerned because I've never done this with the tofu that's how do you say, not extra firm. So I'm a little concerned because the firm tofu doesn't always hold together that well when you cook with it. It's better to use the extra firm. I think I'm about to teach you a lesson as to why. So let's see what happens. So let's get our blender ready. Let's pull over our recipe sheet pan here. So what do I have? I've got my lemon for lemon juice. I have some sherry vinegar. I've got, look how beautiful. Look at this little plum. Have you seen anything so pretty? It's like so shiny, such a pretty color, right? And same thing when you're working with the plums. I like to work with a smaller knife here. Move this over. And then again, cutting through, twisting the fruit, right? Twisting it in half. And if it doesn't twist in half, go again, quarters, right? Go for the quarters and then try twisting. See, there it is. You can twist it off the stone and kind of pull out the stone. The last one's the hardest. You can pull it out with your fingernails or you can use the knife to kind of dig it out. So I'll show you once more. From the stem, through the stem, you're going to hit the stone, turn, 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 turn. Now you've cut it in half. You can twist and pull off, or if it's not going to twist and pull off, still hard to get this pit out, go again into quarter and twist and pull from there. All right, so we have our plums ready. Try to get most of that flesh in there. Okay, we got to put in our peaches. So for this one, these peaches are, oh my gosh, they smell like, here, smell, everybody smell. Can you just close your eyes and pretend just for me? It smells so good. There's really nothing like the smell of a fresh peach. So cutting through that, twist, 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 right? Twist, open, and to get this cling, was it? The clinging stone, you can cut it into quarters and then twist that off. So I'm gonna do sort of a mini version of this one because I don't need to make this for 100 people. So just gonna twist. We're gonna do 2 peaches, a handful of plums. We're also adding a garlic clove. We're adding some shallot and some fresh thyme leaves here too. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's add some of that watermelon. It's really nice. It's kind of like a sweet, savory thing. Let's add some of those peaches. I'm gonna cut these halves, just make it a little bit easier for that blender to work through some of these things. Okay, let's add our plums. Let's add our thyme, about a teaspoon or so. It's gonna get blended up, some nice fresh thyme. We're gonna add a little bit of espelette, which is a nice red pepper. You can also use like Aleppo is good, just to give us a little bit of heat. If you don't have either of those, you could use a pinch of the red chili flakes, but not a lot because those have more heat than espelette. So you could, and if you don't like spicy, just leave it out altogether. All right, I'm working on my garlic clove here. So I'm just gonna trim that to get the skin off here. You can also just, pop this with your knife and take the skin off that way too. I don't know why I've decided to be somewhat precious about this one. Maybe because this one came from the garden, so I feel like it doesn't deserve to be, smashed and beaten like the rest of them.
Manhandled?
So, yeah, smashed and beaten. Let's go with that. So let's slice that in half. And then we've got our shallot. So this calls for a whole shallot. A whole shallot will be a lot for the amount that I'm making. So I'm just going to use a little bit, maybe a half or so. Questions or comments about this recipe? It's pretty straightforward because everything goes in the blender, right?
Yeah, there's a question about, what can you do with the extra watermelon? There's always a lot of watermelon and, what are some other things you could do with it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see. What else can you do with your watermelon? Well, let's crowdsource this information. Does anyone have any thoughts on your watermelon use? What do you guys like to do with it? I like to eat it fresh. I like to blend it into a gazpacho with tomatoes. Oh my gosh, these smell so good. I'm using the spatula here to help lift some of these up because my cast iron grill pan is just not as, what's the word I'm looking for? I'd like it to stick less. And I think it's time to turn some of these because I smell it. Oh, they're coming up. They're coming up. All right, there we go. Losing a few tofu cubes, but
Chef
it's all good.
Emily, there was a couple of recommendations to use the
watermelon?
watermelon. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. What do you got?
Sorbet granita.
Oh,
Sangria.
Yeah. Oh, sangria. I'm coming to your house. Okay. And yeah, all of those things are great. I also really love to use watermelon in savory applications. Tofu is so delicate. It's like really, it's lovely. I like to use watermelon in savory applications, like in a savory blended soup. Watermelon, feta, and mint with a little olive oil, classic summertime salad. You could use basil instead of the mint. That's really good too. Yeah, those are some favorite ways that I really like to use watermelon.
Watermelon salad and goat cheese was another recommendation there.
Yum, yum, so good. Yeah. How else do I like to use it? I mean, I use it a lot of times fresh in a salad. Blend it up in drinks. You can make watermelon ice cubes, put it in your blender, pour it into your ice cube tray, and anytime you're, having a sparkling water or something like that, you have your ice cubes in there, and with watermelon, it infuses it with a little bit of flavor. That's nice too. So I added some lemon juice. I'm going to add a splash of our sherry vinegar. We're going to add a pinch of our salt. And this is going to blend up. So notice I have not added the olive oil. I haven't added the yogurt, and I haven't added the almonds. So those go in later. So I might need my tamper to kind of help the fruit go down. If you don't have one of these, you could just stop it and give it a shake and then try again and kind of keep doing that until it works. Oh, there you go. See, it's working itself down. I'll do that instead because not everyone has one of these tamper things. There it is. See? Easy enough, right? So blend that up. And as it's blending, this is important, carefully lift your lid out and get your olive oil in there, emulsifying. All right, oh my goodness, time has flown today. It's just past 1:45, so we're gonna wrap it up. Let's show you this gorgeous, oh my gosh, it smells so good. This gorgeous soup. I was skeptical of the red watermelon because I like the kind of light color that the yellow gives, but look how beautiful that is. I mean, it's really a spectacular color as well. At this point, you can get your little flowers out, all your little edible flowers, your borage, your nasturtiums. Have some fun. This is the time of year when we are so lucky to have such abundance. And, how pretty, how pretty this is really will I think add to the flavor as well when something looks so beautiful. So there's our beautiful stone fruit soup. Let's get our panzanella. Really fun to say. If you're at home, even if you're at home alone right now, just say it out loud. Panzanella. It's like, just makes you feel like you are, I don't know, in somebody's warm Italian kitchen somewhere. So here are the herbs and the lettuces. I like to kind of shimmy that onto the plate and then top it with this nice, crusty, kind of rustic, saucy salad and serve that up. I'll show you all the tofu and apricots next. And you can see like how nice it is. Let's see, I did pick a few nasturtiums for you all because they're really, these are nasturtiums. They're also edible. They really add a little bit of a flair to your dish. They're also spicy. So here's your beautiful panzanella. Gorgeous, right? All right, and then for our final little bit of a sticky friend over here, but for our final recipe, we've got, this has actually worked out pretty well. I just needed to get the spatula to help this, because this tofu is, again, a little delicate. Oh my gosh, the grilled apricots smell so good. And again, you could serve these on a little, on the kebab, or you can just, chop everything up together and serve it a little more rustic, as I mentioned, right? So let's put some flowers on this one too, because why not? We have a few. Okay. So there's our grilled apricots and our tofu. The grilling brings out a lot of sweetness in the apricots. It's really lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. Any final questions or comments? Alita, just checking in with you here.
Just that's a pretty dish. And somebody also used avocado watermelon salad.
Avocado watermelon. Love that. Yes. Thank you for your contribution. That's excellent. I think I might have to make that when I get home.
Yes,
all right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alita, for moderating. We have more classes coming up. We have a wonderful class tomorrow evening with Dr. Weiss. It's going to be focused on heart health. And we're going to be making a za'atar chicken. And what else are we making in that class? Oh, some roasted eggplants. Eggplants are in season with a tahini sauce. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. I'm excited for that. Very simple recipes. And then next week we have more coming up. So please stay tuned. Our August calendar is probably going to come out either this week or next. So I know it's summer and everyone is enjoying outdoors time, but I hope that you'll come back and join me in the kitchen for some more beautiful celebration of seasonal flavors. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.